everyone, and welcome to another episode of Brush Talk. This week we've got my friend Sean joining me in what appears to be a competition of who has the best beard.
I'm winning. I'm winning.
Mine's got less grey in it than yours.
Shut up. Mine's a veteran beard. That's all I can say.
He said, putting on his X-ray specs.
Absolutely, because I can see nothing without them.
General theme for tonight's Brush Talk, something that Sean and I have been chatting about the last few days, Battlefleet Gothic. So,
Battlefleet Gothic!
Battlefleet Gothic ramming speed!
Oh, we do like a bit of ramming speed.
We do like a bit of ramming speed. Well, I don't, because I'm an Eldar. I'm painting Eldar today. I'm sure the orc inside me is just desperate to start ramming things.
I do apologise, but in my search for what we were going to talk about tonight, we currently have a missing battle barge and strike cruisers.
Somewhat appropriate for the soul drinkers, not being able to find them.
Well, yes, very probably. And but I have found my Imperial fleet that are all painted. So sadly, I will be painting Votann while you talk about Battlefleet Gothic with me.
Battlefleet Gothic! Yes! This is
Battlefleet Gothic!
Brace for impact! There's so many great things you can yell about Battlefleet Gothic.
Yes, but I've obviously got the ramming speed poster I purloined when Games Workshop, when I worked there, we're getting rid of it.
As and when Sean and I finally, when he finds his missing Space Marine fleet, we're going to play a game of Battlefleet Gothic in his spare room, in his gaming space, which has got the giant ramming speed poster up on the wall, brace for impact up on the wall. And we'll be able to see it then. This is not, let me stress now, this is not a what is Battlefleet Gothic video or anything like that. I'm going to do a separate video kind of for beginners who don't know what Battlefleet Gothic is, or for anyone who just wants to wax lyrical and nostalgic on the subject of Battlefleet Gothic. But briefly, for those of you who are completely uninitiated, Battlefleet Gothic was a spaceship miniatures game that Games Workshop produced some time ago, and
we don't talk about how long ago.
We don't talk about how long it is. Your beard still had colour in it. It was that long ago.
In fairness, I probably didn't have this beard.
The general
long ago it was.
The general idea behind it was that it was a spaceship miniatures game. It was more almost like a naval warfare game in the fact that it was played in 2 dimensions, and it had a lot of the kind of the laws of motion stuff you'd expect in a high seas game. But it was awesome because it was 40k and it had cool ships and everyone had a different fleet. And tonight I will be painting. Tonight, Matthew, I will be the Eldar. Such a pretty miniature to menace Sean with.
So I do. Oh. I do absolutely agree that the entire thing about Battlefleet Gothic that always got me was the sheer fact that it was literally wooden ships, iron men in space.
Yeah, basically. I mean, it was. It followed all the rules. I mean, down to the fact that the Imperial fleet used like the Order of the Line. It was like something out of Trafalgar.
Well, exactly it, and obviously, where I come from, where my home area is that's a massive thing as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, the Eldar ships even have sails, and they literally sail using like the solar wind to move around, place and zap people with.
So, I'll dig out my fleet now on the grounds that I bought this fleet. Oh, wrong side.
What's in that side?
Oh, there's another battleship. This is some more chaos, Ben.
Okay.
So on top of what I found in the garage earlier on, there's more.
Yeah, you have a horde of unopened boxes that will make your average grognard weep.
So just for clarity, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 chaos cruisers. I can't remember what that was. Wasn't that a grand cruiser?
Oh, is that the repulsive class? Cruiser. Yeah, that looks like.
I think that's yeah. Sorry, bad lighting, but yeah,
it's either too bright to see or it's too dark to see. It's one or the other.
There is no. Oh, was that another one? Or maybe 8 chaos cruisers. So there's an interesting find. I've got some defense platforms as well when we play, just for scenery.
Excellent.
apparently, that I built at some point. I don't know where I got those from.
Well, the scenario that I want to play through with you, one of the things that it gives the option for is for the defenders to have like some defensive stuff, like a defense platform and a minefield and stuff like that. What's in the other side of the case?
So the other side of the oh, Ben, there's another slightly battered Repulsor class Chaos Cruiser.
You've got 2 repulsive class. Well, if you don't want the second one, I'll take it off your hands for you.
Oh, Ben.
You found your battle barge you were looking for, haven't you?
Yes.
Hey,
yes,
you can paint Battlefleet Gothic tonight. It's a miracle.
You know what? That's looking in a hurry, isn't it? Black background on black background.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Oh, that's slightly embarrassing.
Excellent. See, it's because you didn't have your magnifying specs on before, clearly.
No, clearly. So that's a battle barge and 5 strike cruisers there.
So that is more than half the chapter's fleet assortment.
And to be fair, I've got a 6th.
And a 6th strike cruiser. Just cause.
And just as a reminder, I think the only time this battle barge and if I'm not even sure I used the battle barge, I think I used strike cruisers. And I played against our friend Tom, Tom Ralph, and he had his Tyranid fleet, and it's safe to say that his Tyranid fleet didn't survive.
Proud bombardment cannons for the win.
It was, if I recall, I managed, because the strike cruisers are so manoeuvrable. And I was playing against some big stuff. It just couldn't outturn me, which just meant I could just sit in his rear quarter and he could do literally nothing about it.
You were playing against not Eldar.
I was playing against not Eldar. So I bought this fleet. Oh, I've broken the base. That'll need to remember. So I bought this fleet about the same time as I brought my Praetorian Guard. When I was going mad for them. So of course the natural thing was to deploy a fleet that of course is the Praetorian Imperial fleet. It's fair to say it's quite noticeable.
It's a thin red line, as it were.
It is. So painted in the colour schemes to suit the Praetorian Guard as best I could. And thus I have one.
Did they have suitably Praetorian names like Victory and like Triumph and Hotspur?
Well, no. So what we had was, by the looks of it, we had the Javelin,
the Sir Michael Caine,
one here, the Hook.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one.
I'm sure I had one in here called Rorke's Drift. And yes, I did have the Sir Michael Caine.
Excellent.
There's 4 cruisers there. I've got 2 Dauntless light cruisers.
Cool.
Kicking in the box. I appear to have 4 Cobras and 3 sword frigates in here.
Okay.
Again, without the ones I've just found in the garage.
That you haven't built yet. I was going to say, so you've got the 3 swords you've got there and 4 Cobras, and then you've got another blister pack. I don't know how many blister packs you had of more Cobras and swords, wherever you stash them. The genesis of the idea for this game, the reason this craving came upon me, and I then infected Sean with it, is the next White Dwarf walkthrough I'm going to be doing is White Dwarf 233, and that featured one of the 2 Battlefleet Gothic battle reports that they did, which was a cracking one of the Imperial fleet versus Eldar raiders. And there was a special scenario they published in that White Dwarf that wasn't featured in the main big blue rulebook that I've just been brandishing at the screen. It was one of the ones they actually said in the article that they wanted to put in. They just ran out of room, so it didn't make the cut then. I think it eventually made it into the Armada rulebook, which was a supplement they produced for Battlefleet Gothic. But yeah, the idea behind this scenario is it's a hunting mission. So you have, the fuzz, the Imperial filth, out looking for a bunch of, freelance pirates.
Listen to the filth.
The Imperial fleet gets twice the points value of the Raiders fleet. And basically they're on kind of a mission to find the pirate raiders base and shell it from orbit and destroy it. So the setup for that mission is you've got a system with kind of scattering of asteroid belts that the Eldar pirates can hide in. 2 planets down the far end of the board, one of which has the Eldar's base on, but you don't know which one. So the Imperial has to, chance their arm and see which one they can get to. The Eldar fleet, though, has to start, some of the fleet has to start the game hiding on the planet. So obviously, if at any point the Eldar fleet leave the planet, then the Imperials can figure out which one's the target world. So it's a question of how long do the Eldar hold their nerve and, use their sort of ships in the outer system to hold the Imperials off, versus what point do they deploy the rest of their fleet from their base and therefore give the game away. And one of the requirements is, as well as the Imperials getting half the points value, the Imperials getting double the points value of the Eldar pirate raiders, both fleets have to spend at least half their points on escort models. So if I, for example, brought, say, 1,000 points of Eldar, then I can spend at least 500 points of that has to be spent on escorts. At that point, Sean would have to spend 1,000 points on escorts. I mean, we might say maybe we'd allow him to use the Dauntless light cruisers in there as well. Albeit I know they're not escorts, they are very light cruisers, but they're so low in terms of their hit points that it doesn't make much of a muchness.
No, it doesn't really. The only thing with the Dauntless was their manoeuvrability, really.
Which the escorts have.
Firepower, and you had it. Yeah, of course. Now the question is, that's where I put them.
Although the Dauntless was 6 cruiser hits compared to the 8 on them on your average Imperial cruiser, so it's still a hell of a lot more than your average escort, but it is like 300 points cost. Yeah, we'll see how you get on building escorts for it.
So, there's another 3 sword.
So that's
and
6
another
sword,
3 sword.
9 sword.
And another 3 sword.
Okay, you might have enough escorts.
So that'll give me
swords.
That could give me 12 sword frigates and 8 Cobra class destroyers to play with.
Okay, let's just see. So your sword clocked in at 35 points. So 8 swords, 240 plus another 40, 280, and then Cobras 30 points each. How many Cobras did you say?
I can field 8.
Oh, 8 Cobras and 12 swords, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So 240 for the Cobras and then 12 swords. Yowza. 350 plus another 70, 280, 350. 700 points. You've basically got 700 points worth of escorts there. So, I mean, in terms of if we wanted to avoid varying the scenario and just play it exactly as per the scenario, we say you take 1,400 points worth of Imperium. I get 700 points of Eldar, and you then proceed to hand me my backside.
You see, you're counting your chicken. You're counting my chickens before my chickens have hatched, Ben.
This is true. This is true. I'm painting tonight, so you painting your battle barge then?
I'm just debating how I'm going to do this now because. True to form, when I bought these, I've gone the old school way of black undercoat.
And you bought a contrast paint.
Now I've got... and something's just fallen off of it, so that doesn't help either.
They don't build them like that anymore.
They've been sat in their case for so long, just collecting... Well, the case has been collecting dust, not so much the figures. That I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to get over this without respray at some point. So that, of course, I've now been adapting myself to the new contrast paints, which I love. But they're not really conducive to painting on a black background anymore, as you know.
There's a technique you could try, and it's up to you whether you want to give it a go or whether you want to leave it, spray it white, and then contrast it, or strip it and respray it, whatever you want to do. The current flashy name for it is Slap Chop. The traditional name for it is Zenithor Highlight. And the idea is you've got your black undercoat, you dry brush it in successive layers of grey, then white, and then contrast it. And that provides the natural shading. It's up to you if you want to give it a go, or if you just want to go nuts to it, I'll strip it and respray it, or I'll just respray it when I've got more time, and go and paint your space dwarves. Or you could just sit and build escorts to the world.
Yeah, I'm going to have to get some pinning for that, because that was one of the things that used to drive me mad about Gothic was the the ships are wonderful, and as far as the cruisers and everything, it worked really, really well in terms of, you know, the bases works for them. When you got down to the sword, the sword and the cobras, I found I had a difficulty getting them damn things to stay on their bases. So
yeah,
I literally had to pin the lot because they just would not stay on the basic plastic base. So you literally had to cut off the top of it, but I just had to drill a bit of brass rod down in there because you actually had no chance of one sitting in there for a game. Just wouldn't. It just.
No, I know your pain. I know your pain. And I've got all that to look forward to with all my Eldar escorts when they arrive.
So yeah,
whatever you are comfortable with, dude.
Well, I think I might give the slap chop a go on one of the
Strike cruisers.
the strike cruisers. Thank you, because I'm not sure I want to do it on the battle barge, but we'll see. I mean, in fairness, they're so badly done. I probably need to fill in all the black bits because I've not sprayed these properly. So all in all, whatever I was thinking at the time wasn't particularly good.
Well, I mean, it is probably 20 years ago.
Oh, I dread to think how long I've had these things.
When I was looking at White Dwarf 233, that is, yeah, I mean, that's basically 2000 or thereabouts. And yeah, it's shocking to think how long ago these models were released. But on the other hand, how nice they still look and how well they stand up to the test of time. I mean, this is the Eldar, this is a Shadow class cruiser, and they are really, really nice models. And they took really nicely to the white spray. I just gave this one a blast with Skull White Spray. And I'm going to try doing a bit of wet blending on this one using two contrast paints. I've got Luxurian Purple and Doomfire Magenta. I'm going to just try and blend a little bit of purple to pink and back to purple again across it and see how it looks. I mean, maybe it looks better when I put it back in the bio strip. We shall see.
Do you know what? I don't even know. I think I'm probably going to quit on the black just on the basis that I'm just going to get annoyed that it's not going to look the way I want it now. I have adapted to those contrast paints far too easily, and I just love them.
No, they're really, really well, I'm slapping purple on this as we speak. They really, really are helpful.
Yeah, I mean, the only one I've come across so far that I'm really not quite so happy with is the Basilica. No, what's it called? The Basilicanum Grey. Now that one doesn't quite perform as well as I like, but so far, the all of the skin colours, the orange I've been using on my Votann, the Black Legion, everything else has been perfect. It's just not the greys. The greys are somewhat annoying.
I found that the grey is perfect as long as you don't actually want to paint anything grey. So hear me out. I've been using the grey as a replacement for Nuln Oil because Nuln Oil has a habit of getting a little bit shiny, and I've been trying using just over my metallics a little bit of medium and Basilica Grey over the metallic instead, and it gives you a nice matte finish, and then you can just edge highlight it up so that only the edges have the gleam, and the grey works really nicely for that. I've also found it's quite helpful if you paint it over something that's already grey. So I've got some scenery pieces I've been painting up, and I've sprayed them with a grey primer, painted over the top with Basilica Grey, and at that point, because it's already going over grey, it works quite nicely.
All right, okay. I'll have to bear that in mind when I'm messing around. But yeah, as a grey to use on my Votann, it didn't work. So I kind of binned it off with a theory that I would tackle it a different way, and went back to trying to use the Mechanica Standard Grey,
which is an excellent grey. I mean, it gives good coverage.
Yeah. I'm glad to say that some of the colours have at least not changed their name since I bought this set. Although I did find out that the white has changed colour, which really threw me. It's now Korvax white instead of Ceramite white when I bought this paint set.
Yeah. Which one am I using here? I'm using Corax White. I was on Ceramite White for a while, but I think I used up the last of my Ceramite White.
I don't know the difference. White's white, isn't it?
Well, so I've got two different whites here. I've used Skull White, which is the spray, and I've got here White Scar and Corax White, and there is a little bit of difference. I would say Skull White is very much a bright white. Corax White is more of a very pale grey.
See, I don't typically use white for my undercoats, so all of my stuff that I've been painting lately, I'm using was it Wraithbone, whatever it's called.
Yeah, Wraithbone's the contrast underspray, and it is really good. I mean, I've used that, but I've used Wraithbone, I've used Skull White, and I think I get a better coverage with Skull White. So that's why I'm still using Skull White.
I just like the fact that the Wraithbone is that slightly off-white, so that it just makes enough of a difference that I'm already dealing with a very, very bright orange here.
Yeah. Which orange are you using?
That I think that it would. I'm using Magmadroth Flame.
Oh, okay.
And when it's first coming out of the pot and I am putting it on, it's extremely orange, and I don't know whether that's going to come across here. It's safe to say it's incredibly bright orange, which is fine for a base coat. But then what I found is that to find my perfect level of orange, I then shade it with Reikland Flesh.
Okay.
Flesh shade. And then when I come and dry brush that on top of that, then once that's dried, with whatever I decide I'm going to do it, where be it kindle flame or slightly layer it or edge it. Then when I'm finally just need to tie everything in, I just do a very watered down layer of this Magmadroth on top that sort of pulls it all together, but without making it glaringly in your eye. You can see it from about 27 miles away.
It's not prison uniform
by the naked eye. Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to throw some pictures of your Votann up when we finish recording this.
Okay.
Because I want to do a little piece with you that I've called How It Started and How It's Going.
Oh, God, yes. You did see this. And I'm sorry. I draw the lot. Well, I mean, I could show you some of the awful stuff I found in here. In fact, oops. I really, really don't know what I was thinking when I was painting these, because these are just. I don't know what it is. I've never been able to paint fantasy as well as
40k.
As well as I can 40k. And I don't really know why that is, but this was just generally hideous. It's the only way I can describe it.
Take a photo of one of them and send it over to me, and I will throw it up on the screen.
Yeah, bear with me.
Yep. Brilliant. Okay, no, that's not too bad.
Oh no, that's horrific. I can't. No. Seriously.
When did you paint this? How long ago is this, Elf?
Oh Lord! Oh, do you know? I can't tell you. Those are years old. I've got a whole regiment of elves out there crying at me with how badly I painted them.
Okay. I've seen your How It's Going, because I know obviously what your most recent Votann looked like, and they look really cool. They look really, really good. Let me show you. Which Votann are you happiest
I'm
with?
exceedingly. The Votann actually, bearing in mind that this is only the third project back, having had a 14 or 15 year break from painting.
Yeah. I mean, you've basically up until your kids were like teenagers, you've basically been out of the hobby.
Yeah, no, I literally, I burnt myself out with a hobby back about 15 years ago, running the club, doing the gaming club network, trying to keep up, doing a bit of work in the shop as well at the time. And I ended up, I spoilt my hobby for myself because I literally just burnt myself out. But, the how it's going is, like I say, considering it's been a break of 14, 15 years with all the sort of depressive episodes I had going on and all sorts that stopped me doing it. I'm generally speaking, these Votann have come out really well, and I'm again, it's taking to that new contrast paint has helped perhaps instill some confidence. I don't know.
Oh, cool. You hated building these, though. You called these so many rude names on our messenger thread when you were talking about making these.
And I'm not going to change my mind about that. They are one of the worst figures I've ever had to deal with in terms of trying to paint around stuff and then keep over painting with stuff, trying to get at other stuff that you've done. And it just... Yeah, I mean, they were a sod to put together, and anybody buying them, you're going to end up pinning them because that...
and they're plastic as well. Are you going to pin them?
I've had to pin them. So I found was that when I built them and I'd undercoat them and I started painting them and I noticed that one of them was wobbly. Mm-hmm. So, and this is my one complaint with how they've designed it is... Right at the back, they give you a rock. I don't know whether you've seen this. You give you a rock with a little plastic pin, basically, off one of the other bits that you're supposed to slot into a hole in the rock.
Yeah.
Now that's all well and good, but it's plastic, and there's no support at the front end, so it's all on the back end. There's nothing at the front end. And over time, I don't care how careful you are with it, that is gonna break because it's tiny. You're talking about a mil and a half square of plastic holding the whole model up, and you've got to put it in cases, and whether you got a frame on it or not, it's going to put a bit of pressure on it, and over time it just the front one of them just started bouncing while I was painting it. Maybe I made a mistake when I was making it, but the upshot was I've ended up putting a metal pin in to match up with the stone, and you won't be able to see it really because I've quite camouflaged it quite well. But there is another metal pin at the front to balance it by. It was a pig of a model. I'm not going to lie, they were a pig of a model.
We talked about this a little bit in the last Brush Talk video, actually. The gamers I had along for that one. We debated whether or not there's some kind of challenge going on at Warhammer World to see who can build the most zero-G looking model. Like something which has the bare minimum contact with the base.
Yeah, and the principle is it's a really good idea and good principle to have there, but it's just its longevity, I don't think, personally is there, and I think I just see people getting a bit nuts that's going to break while they're doing it over a long period of time. I mean, I can only assume either. No, that would be my worry. So I'm happy I pinned them. It works. You can't see that I've pinned it really. They're more stable, so I'm more than happy. Now, on the other hand, I'll show you some of these, Ben. Again, these 40k. Some of these aren't particularly good in any way, shape, or form. And this goes back. Blimey, I've got Womble Marines here from some of the first. If you remember the originals.
I do. Well, funnily enough.
Back.
Let me show you how it started, because that's one of the miniatures I started with that I still have. Is a Womble Marine. Go on, let me show you. You ready?
Yeah. There
you go. This is now. Please bear in mind, I was about 9 when I painted this.
Have you sent that? Oh. Yeah. I see where you're coming from when you like mine.
When I said yours doesn't look too bad. Yeah. Now, in fairness,
I wasn't 9 when I painted that. In fairness, when I was 9, Ben, we were still on minifigs and stuff like that. I mean, Games Workshop. I was going to say, if you want me to go back to the original times when I was painting the first sort of Citadel miniatures, you're talking about the days before they were really known as GW. So
is that when they were still like Ralph they were still.
So yeah, Ralpatha was around, but Citadel Miniatures, you bought the box sets, and I always remember I bought a box set of Chaos Knights, or something along those lines. I bought the elves, and it was back in the day, probably when the elves weren't so politically correct to name them.
No, please don't.
And I always remember. Do you not want me to tell you the names of one of the characters in the box set?
It's fine. Please don't. Moving on.
Please don't. We're moving on. Can you remember?
I know some of those names. The Womble Marine I've sent you. What I was going to say, you have to bear in mind, originally he was painted with Humbrol enamel white and Humbrol enamel black that I had left over from painting my Concorde miniature.
Right.
And then I discovered GW paints and just slapped Ultramarines blue over the top of the Humbrol. So somewhere underneath that GW Ultramarines blue, there is still Humbrol white. But I was trying to paint him to match the Space Crusade box art.
Now, somewhere in here.
Are you going to say you've got Space Crusade miniatures?
Well, do you know what? When I was trying to build up, and bearing in mind, I'll send you this one. So these are some of my first 40k when I really started getting into these guys. I did the Crimson Fists.
Okay.
These are out of your original first Space Marine box set that they used to do with all the plastics.
Yeah, the RTBO1 as it's known.
That's it. Before they went metal, they were plastic originally. There's a few to show off there. I painted in my Crimson Fists.
Got Bonehead painted on it. Bonehead.
Oh no, I
Livingstone or Living. What's on the shin of that?
That was one? Bonehead. That's Begone written on that one.
Oh, Begone.
And this one had Living something. I don't even know what that's. I couldn't even tell you, Ben.
It's all right. I first got introduced to Space Marine miniatures because I already had the fantasy miniatures, but I first got introduced to Space Marine miniatures by my next door neighbours who were about 5 years older than me, and they painted their own Space Marine chapter, which I occasionally get tempted to recreate just because it was quite cool. It was black bodies with a yellow helm with a red stripe down it as squad markings. And it was Rogue Trader kind of era markings, and they had different squads had like, one of them had like a yellow shoulder pad as the squad leader, that sort of thing. So it matched him with a helmet. The name of their chapter though was the Shit Kickers.
And you're allowing the Shit Kickers, but we can't talk about Quentin.
Well, maybe we'll make it through the edit. Maybe it won't. We'll see. So I've sent you my how it started. Let me send you my how it's going. So I think you've already seen all the Bretonian stuff that I've been painting, but you probably haven't seen this.
I have.
This is something I painted, just fun and games, but it is somewhat in keeping with the whole March from a Crag thing. Are you aware of March from a Crag? You are on and off Twitter, aren't you? Depends whether you're on Twitter or whether you've been kicked off again.
Oh, come on. I only get kicked off when I'm swearing at Tories.
Well, March from a Crag is basically in March, people paint Ultramarines and they go, we march from a Crag. So I decided I'd paint. For many years, I've been teasing Nick Baton, who's one of the studio presenters and who is a massive Ultramarines fan. And I always say to him, Nick, I'm going to paint an Ultramarine model. And then I paint a Chaos model that's an Ultramarine successor, like the Red Corsairs, or I paint a Fallen Ultramarine. And I went this one, Nick, I'm going to paint an Ultramarine. And I painted this, which I've just sent to you. Yeah. Which I actually quite like.
I like that.
So I've been playing with a couple of different colour schemes for Stormcast. And these ones I'm calling the Avenging Suns. They may well get a little Stormcast company painted. The other one, where have you gone? There you are.
Okay.
The Midnight Lords.
Nice.
Basically, just playing around with. I was trying. What happens if you paint Ultramarines blue onto a Stormcast? What happens if you paint Night Lords blue onto a Stormcast? I was playing with the contrast paints, and this is how they came out. And they came out quite nicely.
Fair.
So yeah, I'm undecided as to which one of those is going to become the main Storm host that I paint for Age of Sigmar, because they're both quite fun to paint. I'm leaning towards the Night Lords.
Okay, yeah, the Night Lords are definitely a good Chaos army, but I'll show that, and I'll just revert to the back that we talked about Space Crusade briefly.
Oh yeah,
and when I decided I'd had enough of Space Crusade, I purloined all of the Space Marines, and I subverted them and converted them into Crimson Fists.
Well, that's fine. The Crimson Fists are Space Marines.
Yep. So they all got converted into part of my again. The quality of the painting is debatable. I have, without a shadow of a doubt, from my entire painting life until contrast paints arrived, really struggled painting flesh. I will make sure my entire army is in helmets rather than paint flesh. I will avoid buying the armies where I know I'm going to have to paint flesh.
Because it's that much of a bugbear for you.
Oh, I hate it.
We've strayed a little bit away from from Battlefleet Gothic. One question I was going to say to you was, why Soul Drinkers for your Battlefleet Gothic fleet?
Well, there's two things for me. Soul Drinkers for that were one of the Space Marine. I've not, nor have I ever really been bought into the whole Ultramarine thing. They're far too vanilla. They're far too boring. They're far too prim and proper, as far as I'm concerned, and therefore I've never really been happy about playing them. So, obviously, the Soul Drinkers had a couple of books kicking around, which I read, and purple is one of my favourite colours. So therefore, it kind of lends me to. Lends me to painting the Soul Drinkers. Okay.
So it's partly a combination of having read the novels. It's partly a combination of you really like the colour. It's about ironic. You're painting purple. Yep. I'm painting at least one of my Eldar Cruisers purple. So it would be Battle of the Purples.
To be fair, it will be Battle of the Purples because you're painting yours Luxian purple as parts, and that's the colour I've been sold to do Soul Drinkers. But that will come down to if I paint the Soul Drinkers, if you play them, you'll be playing against the Soul Drinkers. But I don't think that's going to work because I don't have enough small stuff for that. So you're probably going to meet the Imperial fleet, which is going to be bright red, and you won't miss them.
No, that's it. They'll easily stand out against the Void. Whereas once I've painted some little twinkly lights and stuff on this, it'll blend into the starscape as it drifts across a nebula. One thing I was going to say about the Soul Drinkers, sorry to quickly interrupt you, have you considered making their fortress monastery? Because do you remember what the Soul Drinkers fortress monastery was?
Do you know what? No, was that a Space Hulk?
It was a Space Hulk, and there's rules for Space Hulks in Battlefleet Gothic.
The one that really kind of floats my boat for Gothic, though, was this one.
Yes.
Execution Hour.
And its sequel, Planet Killer. Execution Hour is the better of the two, but its sequel was awesome as well.
Oh, no. I don't think I've read its sequel.
Ooh, okay. I've got its sequel if you'd like to borrow it at some point.
Well, I'd be delighted.
Yeah, they did a whole sequel, more kind of around the attempts to destroy the Planet Killer.
Okay.
But
that'd be good.
Execution Hour is such a good book. I mean, it's so different from a lot of the other books that they've ever written. By that point, there wasn't really anything that covered space combat in novel form, and Execution Hour, the entire book, is space battles.
And that's what I like about it, because I really feel it captures that sort of old sort of Napoleonic era of the wooden fighting ships going up against, the victory in it, but it captures it in Space Fleet style, and it works for me. It just captured because I love that part of history, having grown up with it.
Mm-hmm.
It floats my boat, so to speak. But pun entirely intended.
It's fine. We like puns here. Dad jokes are fully allowable, especially as long as you've met the dad requirement. Dad jokes are allowed. I love kind of the Age of Sail books, like the Hornblower books, and most recently, I don't know if you've ever come across. There's a guy called Dewey Lambin who wrote a ton of Age of Sail Napoleonic type books. They're not quite Napoleonic. They kind of go either side of that era. Unfortunately, he passed away. I found him a couple of years ago. I'd never heard of him before, and I came across him and was dead excited. And then he went and died, the bastard. So there's not going to be any more.
Really unfortunate.
It is. It's not acceptable. He should let a little thing like death stop him.
Ban your favourite authors from dying.
Absolutely.
Or getting something that stops them from writing.
Going to detour briefly back to Battlefleet Gothic. Like I said, I'm in the middle of painting my Eldar ship. It's coming along quite nicely. I'm relatively happy with how that kind of pink and purple combo.
Yeah, that's right. It's good.
I'm trying to decide whether to do. I think green sails would look quite nice. It's just a question of which of these varying contrast shades of green to throw on there. But what I wanted to ask was, obviously, you've got your Imperial fleet, you've got your Chaos fleet, and your Spaceman fleet. Did you ever get many games of? I mean, you played against Tom, you said, and Tom's Tyranids. But did you ever get many games of Battlefleet Gothic?
Yeah. To be fair, the Sir Michael Caine only saw a couple of battles. I don't know why. It was timing and whatever else I was doing at the time. They had a couple of outings for sure. Smaller scale, I think. But yeah, not as much as I would have liked. Again, I don't think an awful lot of other people were playing at the time, which is probably why it never really sold as much as it perhaps could have. It was a very niche thing that people wanted to play. And you're right, probably one of the things that the game could never grasp was 3D combat.
Well, that's it. I mean, your own ships didn't block your line of sight, but beyond that,
that's probably the one aspect that Battlefleet Gothic kind of lost. It didn't have that. No 3D.
Torpedoes moved on a horizontal plane, and you had no way of going, I'll just go above them, and I'll get going. It was no. Torpedoes moved on a horizontal plane, and you were on that horizontal plane. Aeronautica has a really nice system that gets around that. If you ever fancy a game of it, I've got a lunch of aircraft for that now, and I would love to give you a game of tiny planes because it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'll give it a go. I'll give it a go because I like that idea that there are. Particularly for those sort of games, it needs that 3D to be able to work for me, really, in and give you the feel of what you're actually dealing with.
One thing I'm going to ask, I know did you play X-Wing for a while?
Again, I bought a load of it and I've dabbled with it.
Did that do 3D combat at all, or was that still on the 2D like Gothic?
It's still a lot of 2D to me. The only thing they did really in there is you could pull loop-the-loops that would allow you to move behind somebody. You could pull the way they dealt with it really was sort of manoeuvres, but yeah, again quite flat in from recollection when I last played it. How it deals with that, but it does allow you to sort of barrel roll out of the way. And it does allow you to do a sort of a loop-the-loop to give you, which allowed you to turn when you wouldn't necessarily be able to. But again, still that flat 2D basis. So apart from that, the models are cool.
Well, like I said, I've got a few of the models as well. Because I picked up the models. I never played it. I've just picked up the models because I went, "Ooh, that's really pretty models. I can have a model of the, like the X-Wing. That's really cool. I want one of those." And I've never ever played it.
Yeah. Or you can have one of the Corvette.
Yes, that particular Corvette, that certain Corvette. They did the Kessel run in so many parsecs, which they then had to go around behind and right into the storyline to explain why it was doing a shortcut.
Not the Millennium Falcon.
Oh, which Corvette are you talking about? Oh, that Corvette from the blockade runner.
Yes, the blockade runner.
From the beginning of the first, well, what I think was the first movie.
Yeah, absolutely, because everybody needs one of those.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, that's the size of that. How the hell big is the Star Destroyer that swallows it?
Well, that's the thing. That's the one thing where you can't have that sort of size thing in the X-wing. It doesn't work. But that's why they produced Armada.
Yeah, which then does give you that extra element. Again, have you played Armada?
Again, no. I have hoarded an awful lot of stuff here, Ben, but it just sits on my shelves and doesn't get played.
I shall have to come around with my camera and just film your hobby hoard at some point. I want to wrap this up a little bit with just a couple of silly questions on Gothic. So, I had certain associations in Gothic in my head with stuff that I enjoyed at the time and with other space-related stuff that's come out since. Silly question number one. Which theme song do you think would go better with Gothic? The original Red Dwarf theme tune or the Battlestar Galactica theme tune?
You see, I'd have to go Battlestar Galactica purely because, the Red Dwarf's too much comedy for me, and Battlefleet Gothic. Yeah, but Battlefleet Gothic's just no. I'm going to go with Battlestar Galactica.
Okay. And again, original Battlestar Galactica theme, or the more recent one.
Oh yeah. Oh no, I'm an original one. In fact, I couldn't even finish watching Battlestar Galactica. I think I got through three seasons.
That's all right, because they couldn't finish writing it either. They just gave up writing it towards the end.
Oh, it was just so depressing.
It was
at least, the original. The original series was fun. They reached Earth. Stuff happened.
Yeah.
There was a whole offshoot from it that was completely rubbish, but there was a whole offshoot from it.
It's okay. They reached Earth in the new Battlestar Galactica as well. They just reached Earth, a couple of million years ago. Okay.
Was that how it worked?
Yeah, that's how it clocked out at the end. Okay.
Right.
Next silly question. I suspect I know the answer to this, but favourite Battlefleet Gothic fleet?
Ooh. I'm going to have to say I'm going to go with the Space Marines.
I thought you might. As a man who has 6 strike cruiser models, I thought you might.
I mean, they are brutal. They are brutal. The Thunderhawk, I think they changed the rules for the Thunderhawk gunships because they were just too brutal.
The Thunderhawks are cool. I mean, don't get me wrong. Thunderhawks, you've got extra. You get to make 2 attack runs on your opponent's ship with every sort of counter, and they got that 4-up save against being destroyed, which is pretty damn cool. And you could also use them for as an assault boat. So they filled that fighter, bomber, and assault boat role that other fleets had to make doing multiples of.
And the difficulty is the bombard cannon, although they were slightly less powerful, obviously, than the battle barge, points-wise, getting multiple strike cruisers and then all firing at the same time at the same dot. It's absolutely devastating. That's what killed that Tyranid fleet. It was just devastating firepower.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's because you just ignore the armor value. It doesn't matter what the armor value is. You're hitting on 4s and you're criticalling on 4s with the bombardment cannon. As somebody who's painting an Eldar fleet, we don't care. You're wounding us on 4s and you're criticalling us on 4s anyway because our hulls are made of tinfoil. Final silly question for Battlefleet Gothic then. Ramming speed or brace for impact?
Ramming speed.
You may have to change the poster on the wall. You have to change the poster.
I have to go with that poster. It is give me ramming speed.
It is very, very cool. Thank you very much for joining me, Sean. I hope you've enjoyed just talking random trash with me whilst not painting anything.
I have realised. I've got orange on three Votann figures tonight.
Oh, that counts for something.
Well, I have been. You did get me in a reminiscent mood.
I have the beginnings of the Shadow Cruiser. It's going to need a few more layers of contrast and bits and pieces doing on it, but I'm quite happy with how that's coming on. It's suitably garish.
Yes. Suitably garish, suitably Eldar, and I've enjoyed going back through some very old figures. In this here case.
And here is the finished Eldar Cruiser. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed listening to me and Sean rattle on about Battlefleet Gothic and all things old miniature-wise. If you did, give me a like and subscribe. In the meantime, I will catch you again. Bye for now.